The shuttle's interior was sterile and metallic, the hum of Xanthian propulsion tech a low growl beneath Ellie Morgan's heartbeat. She sat, dazed but alert, in a containment chair that looked like it was made for someone with more joints and fewer opinions. Her wrists were bound by soft, glowing cuffs, probably meant to be humane. Probably not tested on snarky Earth girls with a physics major and a tendency to mutter sarcasm under pressure. The last thing she remembered was the library. One moment, she'd been annotating a textbook on gravitational lensing for her senior thesis, and the next, a flash of violet light and a paralyzing warmth had swallowed her whole. Now, she was being observed like a bug under glass. Behind a translucent panel, a pair of 4 slitted eyes scrutinized her movements with unsettling calm. Commander Vexlar tilted his head, insectoid mandibles twitching in thought. "The specimen is smaller than anticipated," he said in clipped integral, the translator implant doing its best to filter his voice into dry academic disdain. "But it is calm, curious." Chief Medical Officer Renzai hovered beside him, his spindly fingers scribbling notes on a floating console. "Cognitive response to abduction is high function, elevated sarcasm levels, possibly a stress response or a cultural marker." Ellie blinked. "You know I can hear you, right? And rude, by the way." Renzai flinched. Vexlar did not. "Language? Assimilation protocols have completed," he said. "Excellent. We may now proceed with the standard classification examination." "Oh, goody," Ellie said, rolling her eyes. "Do I get a sticker afterward?" The containment chair reclined. Without warning, scanning arrays descending with mechanical precision. Despite the situation, Ellie's mind clicked into analysis mode. Materials science, energy signatures, even how the containment field's resonance seemed slightly unstable. She wasn't just a physics student. She was a human sponge for patterns. That was her real power. She noticed things. "Vitals remain stable," Renzai said, softer now. "Her brain patterns show anomalous harmonics. Commander, I recommend caution. This species may not be as rudimentary as expected." "They call themselves humans," Vexlar said, barely masking his contempt. "A pre-fusion society. Resource-rich, intellectually chaotic. Primitive but useful. We've harvested from 100 such worlds." Ellie leaned her head back. "And how many of those tried to punch you in the face with quantum mechanics?" That got a twitch from Renzai, but Vexlar waved a clawed hand. "Proceed with genetic analysis. I want her cataloged and cryo-stored before orbital extraction." Outside the vessel, Earth hovered like an unaware jewel. Blue oceans shimmered beneath a lazy swirl of clouds, its surface peaceful, oblivious. The Xanthian stealth ship drifted undetected in high orbit, hidden beneath layered optical distortions. Vexlar's flagship, Eternal Verdict, monitored planetary communications, most of which consisted of memes, podcasts, and heated debates about fictional time travel. It was all so unthreatening. That illusion shattered in less than 10 minutes. Alarms blared. Renzai nearly dropped his tablet. The ship's sensor grid warped violently, shadows splitting in impossible directions. Then came the voice, calm, ancient, and projected straight into the minds of every Xanthian aboard. "You have violated Protection Clause 772. The species under observation is safeguarded. Cease extraction or be rendered inert." Vexlar recoiled. "Identify yourselves," he hissed, spinning toward the view screen. A shape materialized beyond the Earth's moon, a shimmering lattice of geometry, colorless, yet radiant. The sphere of Orote, one of the oldest members of the Galactic Concord. Alongside it blinked into place a crystalline arc that glowed with pulsing inner light. Behind them, an iridescent veil rippled open, revealing silhouettes of beings that did not move so much as exist across multiple quantum states. Concord emissaries. Ellie, now upright and wide-eyed, stared at the screen. "Okay, now that's definitely not NASA." "Impossible," Vexlar whispered. "Earth has no Concord designation, no beacon." "Incorrect," the voice replied. Designation reactivated. The human Ellie Morgan was the observed variable. Your actions have triggered intervention. Renzai turned, panic setting in. Commander, what if this was a setup? What if the specimen was bait? Ellie grinned through the containment glass. Who's the primitive now? Vexler didn't answer. He was staring at Earth not as prey, but as a chessboard, one he had just stepped on without understanding the game. The ship's walls groaned as the Concord's presence pressed against reality, bending space around the eternal verdict like a metal sheet warping under heat. Commander Vexlar clenched, his upper mandibles torn between the instinct to flee and the command programming that forbade retreat before mission completion. Renzai had gone utterly still, the luminescent slits along his arms pulsing erratically, an unmistakable sign of existential dread among Xanthians. Ellie, meanwhile, stood within her now unlocked containment cell, arms crossed, visibly unimpressed. The psychic transmission from the Concord had not only silenced the ship's bridge chatter, but somehow unlocked her restraints, as if the universe itself had decided she was suddenly classified as no longer containable. So, she said, aloud to no one in particular, is this where I get to say I told you so, or are we still pretending I'm the dumb primate here? A loud hiss answered her, as the sealed door slid open without mechanical prompts. Outside, the corridors flickered with low-frequency lights, and it was clear the ship's AI was glitching under the strain of Concord interference. Vexlar strode through the hallway toward her, posture stiff, shoulders twitching. You are to remain in your cell, he growled, his voice brittle. Yeah, about that. I think your psychic babysitter said otherwise, Ellie replied, pointing toward the view screen, where now a translucent humanoid made of starlight and shifting equations had emerged. It spoke without a mouth, addressing Vexlar directly. Xanthian authority has breached Concord-protected parameters. Continued containment of the human constitutes a second violation. Return the specimen. She is not a specimen, Vexlar snapped, mandibles clicking furiously. She is a sentient representative of an unclassified world. How can she be protected? Because the Concord classified Earth centuries ago, long before your empire charted its first warplane, said the entity calmly. The designation was simply hidden, until provoked. Renzai stumbled into the room behind Vexlar, his data slate shaking in his claws. Commander, I've found it. Buried deep in the archive layers, Earth was listed under Concord Watch status for latent quantum resonance anomalies. They were never to be interfered with. Then why no beacon? No planetary marking? Vexlar snarled. Because, Ellie said quietly, stepping forward, someone didn't want us to be found. Until now. The air pulsed as a new signal came through, not from the Concord, but another frequency, older, darker. The lights dimmed, and the starlit emissary stiffened. Detection confirmed, it said sharply. Nexus Dominion trace pattern has been activated. Vexlar froze. The Nexus? That's impossible. They were destroyed centuries ago. No, the emissary said. They were hidden, waiting. Earth was the keystone to draw out a Concord response. Your abduction was engineered. Ellie's heart thundered in her chest. You mean this was all a setup? You are not the target, the Concord envoy said. We are. But you are now central to the unfolding equation. In the distance, the view screen showed a spike of unknown energy on the edge of the solar system, a ripple in subspace, like a curtain pulling back. Renzai whispered, Commander, we've been baited. All of us. Ellie didn't hesitate. Then unbait yourselves. Take me back. Earth is no longer safe, the Concord said. But Earth is no longer alone either. Your species has been observed, tested, underestimated. Your resilience in isolation speaks louder than any technology. The Concord invites Earth to the diplomatic table. Me? Ellie asked, half laughing. You want me to represent Earth? You already have, the voice replied. Vexlar turned to face her fully, shoulders drooping under the realization of a war he hadn't meant to start. "You were not the threat," he murmured. "You were the trigger, the thread they needed pulled." "Glad I could help," Ellie muttered. "So, now what?" "Now," said the conquered envoy as the ship began to shimmer around them in preparation. "For dimensional transfer, you stand before the galaxy, and what you say next may echo for millennia." Ellie rubbed her temple, muttering under her breath. "I really should have just stayed in the library." Then, with a deep breath, she stood straighter and stared into the light, ready to meet the universe. The citadel of the Concord hovered in a spatial fold far beyond the visible universe, a place that didn't exist on any chart because it existed in layered realities simultaneously, a lattice of impossible angles, crystalline conduits, and thought-reactive surfaces. Ellie Morgan stood at its center, wrapped in a breathable exosuit tailored from something called phase thread silk, her boots barely making contact with the polished, semi-translucent floor that shimmered with embedded data pulses. Around her, the representatives of the Concord convened in eerie silence, their forms ranging from humanoid silhouettes to drifting geometric shapes that occasionally folded in on themselves like origami in reverse. Admiral Tix, the blue-skinned, silver-eyed humanoid who had introduced himself as Earth's provisional guardian, stood beside her with hands clasped behind his back, radiating a calm so absolute it made her itch. "You will speak to them, Ellie Morgan," he said in that unnervingly serene tone. "Not as a leader, not as a soldier, but as what you are, unfiltered humanity." "Great," she muttered, adjusting the suit collar. "I'll just wing it with my trusty arsenal of sarcasm and caffeine withdrawal." But when she stepped forward, the space around her changed. The Concord's amphitheater restructured itself in real time to accommodate her neurological patterns, creating a visual stage, a podium, and bizarrely, a flag resembling Earth's continents etched into glowing constellations. Ellie wasn't ready, but she was present, and maybe that counted. "I didn't ask to be here," she began, her voice echoing gently, amplified without tech. "I was taken, without consent, by a species that thought of my planet as a bug. Jar. And I've learned, apparently, that this whole circus was bait, not for me, not even for Earth, but for all of you." The room didn't stir, but something in the air shifted. The orbiting sentient satellites of the sphere of Arot tilted slightly, a sign of attention. "And I get it," Ellie continued, steadier now. "We're a mess. My species barely agrees on what counts as pizza, let alone planetary policy. But we've survived ourselves, and that's saying something. And the moment your stealth ships tried poking at us, Earth noticed. We may be young, but we're not blind. And you—" She pointed at the Conquered, then at the holographic readouts displaying Nexus Dominion energy flares growing at the solar system's edge. "You thought you could stay hidden forever? That ethics would shield you from provocation? That waiting was the same as peace?" Her breath caught, but she pushed on. "The Nexus used us, but that's not the end of our story. It's the beginning of yours with us. You want to protect us? Then don't coddle us. Don't isolate us. Invite us in, let us speak, let us act, let us stand beside you. Because I guarantee one thing, if the Nexus comes knocking, humanity won't wait for permission. We'll fight with whatever we have, memes, nukes, and duct tape if necessary." There was a long silence. Then, slowly, the crystalline luminar pulsed in concentric waves, signaling assent. Ezith, the shape-shifting logic entity, responded, with a tone pulse that translated roughly to acknowledged. Pattern accepted. Inclusion authorized. Admiral Tix gave a faint nod. "The vote passes. Earth is now provisionally seated in the Concord." But the moment the words fell, the citadel shook. Not physically, but psychically. A wave of distortion hit the chamber, and alarms in languages Ellie couldn't read began flashing. A rift had opened just outside the boundary layer of the fold. Nexus Dominion. Not a fleet. A whisper. A weaponized idea. "They're not invading," Tix muttered, brows furrowed. "They're leaking." Images flashed across the chamber, Earth cities with flickering anomalies, people dreaming the same impossible geometry, minds sinking to frequencies they weren't supposed to hear. The Nexus wasn't just attacking, they were rewriting the concept of real. "We need to return," Ellie said, jaw clenched. "Not as a kidnapped victim, as a damn ambassador. Earth needs to know what's coming." "Then go," Tix said, his voice tinged with something new, urgency. "Take the envoy ship. You will not be alone." As conquered emissaries scrambled to reinforce the barrier between dimensions, Ellie stepped into the transport conduit, heart hammering, face calm. She wasn't a student anymore. She was Earth's voice, and the galaxy was finally listening. The sky above Washington, D.C. shimmered as reality buckled around a descending conquered envoy ship, its frame a shifting prism of light and folded geometry, refracting physics itself with every movement. It touched down on the south lawn of a hastily evacuated White House, surrounded not by tanks or missiles, but by stunned onlookers and camera drones broadcasting live to a world teetering between fear and awe. The ramp opened, and Ellie Morgan stepped out, not in chains, not as a victim, but clad in the dark, silken uniform of a Concord diplomat, stitched with threads of starlight and bearing Earth's new crest, a stylized globe encircled by 9 radiant stars. Her face was calm, but her heart thundered. She had been gone 3 days by Earth time, yet it felt like a lifetime. Humanity had been kept in the dark for millennia, and now she would break the silence. Microphones floated toward her. Global. Leaders watched through secured feeds. Her parents were somewhere in the crowd, crying. She didn't speak like a politician or a general. She spoke like someone who had seen the galaxy blink and flinch. "People of Earth," she began, her voice projected across the world in dozens of languages. "You're not alone. You never were. There is a galaxy out there, full of wonders, monsters, empires older than our sun, and powers that don't play fair. Some tried to abduct us, others tried to protect us, but none of them expected us to matter. That ends now." Behind her, Admiral Tix emerged, towering and ethereal, his silver eyes scanning the horizon like a sentry. His presence confirmed the impossible. Earth had a seat at the table of ancient civilizations. But then the warning came. A global transmission override. All screens, all devices, all radios shifted to static before clearing into a singular image. A figure without form. A Nexus projection speaking in a voice that bypassed ears and burrowed into thoughts. "They welcomed you," it said, echoing in every mind. "And so we corrupt them through you." Then it began. Nexus sub-reality pulses rippled across the Earth's atmosphere, manifesting as hallucinations, impossible architecture blooming like fungal growths over cities, people forgetting how to speak or waking with knowledge they should not possess. Quantum anomalies erupted across major scientific labs as equations rewrote themselves in real time. The Nexus weren't conquering, they were unmaking. Ellie turned to Tix. "You said they were baiting the conquered." "Yes," he said gravely. "And now, by extending protection to Earth, we've given them an anchor point. This was their true goal, to force us to intervene, to make Earth the infection vector." "Then we fight," Ellie snapped. "Not just to save Earth, but to stop this spread." "We can't win by force," Tix warned. "They thrive on reaction. But you, Ellie, you're unpredictable, human. You think sideways. That may be our only weapon." That was when Ellie made the call. Not to the conquered, but to Earth's people. She hijacked every broadcast signal and said, "This is not just an alien war. This is a test of who we are. You'll see things that aren't real. You'll doubt. what you know. But here's the truth. Reality is held together not by facts but by belief. And I believe in us. She issued a directive. Every physicist, engineer, coder, gamer, artist, even meme lords, anyone who could process data, imagine patterns, or stabilize perception, was mobilized. The war wasn't fought with guns, but with firewalls of logic, weaponized creativity and anchored thought. Music was used to drown out mind-hacking harmonics. Storytellers spun counter-narratives to override Nexus infiltrations. Earth turned its madness into defense. The conquered watched in stunned admiration as chaos turned surgical. Humanity didn't break. It bent, warped, adapted, and fought back. Not by resisting change, but by absorbing it, owning it, turning the virus into part of its own immune system. In 3 days, the Nexus lost their grip. Not because they were overpowered, but because Earth's collective defiance rewrote their intrusion. The galactic stage had never seen a species weaponize imagination. When the final Nexus rift collapsed, the citadel of the Concord hailed Earth not just as a new member, but as an equal. Ellie Morgan stood once more at the center of that impossible amphitheater, no longer a student or a victim, or even a representative. She was the proof that evolution wasn't about time. It was about readiness. And Earth was ready. The stars, at last, belonged to everyone.